Oh yes, at least cut the time in half. All right, so we got the live stream going. I hope it's using the right recording device. We will find out. All right, and is Hangouts using the right device? Can you guys hear us pretty well? Oh, obviously it's coming out of that. Okay, so now that I have a freshly rebooted laptop, I got the Hangouts link out there. I will reshare our YouTube page. That's one thing I have to say is they've got these new Lenovo phone systems that it's basically a purpose-built computer, which for some reason is $1,700. But anyway, that comes with microphones and video integration, and it runs Link, and I send my meeting invite to it, and it pops up at the time of the meeting. They hit a button, and they connect, and they can see me, and I can see them, and we can hear each other, and they can see our presentation. It just finally works.
All those basic requirements of communication systems.
Yeah, but I mean, of course now they had to buy a $1,700 box. But if you want to purchase a Lenovo Connect 500, I highly recommend it if you are stuck using Link. Anyway.
I think I would just use it to call you, though, because no one else has one.
Well, but it integrates with Skype for Business. So, anyway.
I'm sure Red Hat is a big user of.
What? All right. So, we're going to start with Sean now that I'm exhausted from trying to connect everything up. And with our API v2 removal. This will be fun.
Yeah. So there's actually been some progress on that. The two biggest blockers I saw when I first started looking at this was Tempest. At the time was only testing V2, and they have since added V3, and I think have V3 as the base Tempest tests, and the V2 inheriting off of that. So yeah, so that part is good. The other problem I ran into was DevStack was using OpenStack client, and OpenStack client was hard-coded to do some V2 stuff. To even see if Cinder was available, it was loading V2 paths. So I got a patch merged there that it uses V3 now and can handle the absence of V2. So I'm sure there's other stuff out there, other client libraries that aren't defaulted to V3 yet. I'm not sure how much we want to go into like Gopher Cloud and all the other client libraries out there.
Well, how does that work with in Cinder client? If you just say, give me a Cinder client, do you have to pick V2 or V3?
I don't believe so.
So what do you get by default if you load it as a library?
I think if V3 is there, it'll use V3.
Okay.
I think.
I think you're
exactly.
right. I haven't looked at it in a while.
Yeah, me either. So anyway, so I have a patch out there that originally was just a test patch to see what would happen. Is that Erlen?
Hey, Erlen, are you? No, it's Yvonne.
Yeah, okay.
There we go.
Sorry.
All right.
Yeah, so I had that patch out there to see what would happen. It looks like actually now it's pretty close. I just rebased it to see what the current situation is if we disable V2. So not removing it yet. First step would be we'd have at least one cycle, I would think, where we would want to just disable by default so people can still re-enable it if they want it. we should probably do that 2 cycles, I would think. I don't know if there's any opinions on that, how long we want to have that available but not enabled by default. 2 seems like a safe.
Yeah, that probably works.
You know.
2 cycles sounds safe to remove
Okay.
with API, but did you test your patch with Nova Glance gates? Because I remember my headache with moving V1 API, it's almost all gates were broken, and in Nova Glance maybe something else.
Yeah, Matt Riedman had comment on there. He had some concerns with Nova, but I think we looked at the way that Nova was using the Cinder client, and it should continue to work with just V3.
We seem to still have some,
Maybe we need to ask Manila team and Ironic maybe if they use Cinder in the gates and which version of API do they use.
Yeah, that's a good point. We should, if this patch even passes, we probably should post to the mailing list, making sure everyone is aware that we're going down this route.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
we seem to still have some documentation pointing to the deprecated V1 enable option.
We do?
Yeah, it's in some config table file. Which
Okay.
that option doesn't even exist anymore.
Yeah,
It's
we
still-
actually removed that one finally.
Yeah, it's still in some doc.
Okay. Feel free to update that.
I don't remember how these config table INC files work. Are these generated or do we just edit them? Oh, no, these are
They're
generated somehow.
they're not generated, they're pulled into other documentation.
I mean, the file says it's generated at the top of the file.
Oh, is that left over from OpenStack manuals automation?
Maybe.
Because we copied over stuff from OpenStack manuals, and a lot of that had those comments that they're automatic generated, but they aren't anymore.
Yeah, so this may mean that they're like way out of date with a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Probably. I think the only things that we dynamically generate are the ops to do the config options, and
Yep.
I think the sample.conf.
Yep.
Samplecinder.conf.
And there's a sample policy as well, I think.
Oh yeah, that one too.
I'll write a book, so don't forget about it.
Yeah,
Okay.
good idea.
Well, Glance doesn't have, we're not running one of the periodic jobs against Cinder, but I think that's probably because we don't use Cinder client, you use
Yeah.
Glance client.
I was wondering what the impact would be on Glance.
I don't think I think you contact us to do what you want.
What about if someone is using a Cinder backing store?
Yeah, send her back in for glance.
Those aren't well tested.
We'll just skip
I thought there were
The
jobs
Glance
for that.
store may have,
I think there's jobs for
Oh.
that somewhere because we looked at all that when we were doing it downstream a couple of releases ago.
Yeah, I've never actually really dug into doing Cinder's Glance store.
yeah, we do test. Okay, good. I would have sworn when I set these up, we were doing Cinder. So we're running our
Glance store, not-
Pi 35 and Pi 27 against Cinder
Okay.
master. So any changes there should show up in Abhishek's weekly
Okay,
summary.
good.
Um,
And maybe we could do a depends on patch ahead of time before we default it to being disabled to see if it's going to be an issue.
Yeah, so I think, yeah.
All right.
So we're using Bricken's Python Cinder client. That's all the client store uses.
Okay.
So, yeah, so
Maybe-
probably we're okay.
Yeah.
But anyway, there are tests. Probably need to update these in Glance to use Pi 36.
Yeah. Now for Stein.
But anyway, okay.
Yeah. Okay. So this is mostly just an update, I guess, that needs to happen eventually, or it'd be good to happen eventually. So we don't keep V2 around as long as we kept V1 around. It would be really nice to get to one version supported, especially now that we have micro versions.
And then we're ready for V4.
Yeah, and then we're ready for V4.
How do you feel about that one?
I think that could simplify a lot of. Seems like people using the Cinder API have some confusion, or at least have a lot of extra code that they wouldn't need if they didn't have to worry about figuring out which version to actually use. So we'll see what the results of that patch come back once it makes it through Zool.
So is it a goal to get that done during Stein, the disabling it?
It'd be nice. The sooner we can get it disabled by default, the sooner we can get rid of it ultimately.
So you could ship in Stein with V2 off by default.
Maybe. It looks like the functional test.
It's been deprecated a while, hasn't it?
I-
Seems like ever since I've looked at the Cinder documentation, it's always said V2 deprecated.
Well, V1 was deprecated for a long
Okay.
time. I think we were
very long
actually,
time.
it took us a while to actually mark V2 deprecated, even though
Okay.
we had moved off of V2 to V3.
Right, okay.
We probably should have deprecated it sooner, but we've always been very conservative about anything that impacts clients using Cinder, so it just kind of sat out there for a long time. Shoot, I got to update a functional test on that patch.
And with Glance, we support, so V1's gone in Rocky, but we're supporting it in the Glance client. And it's supposed to be removed from Glance client now in Stein. So I don't know if you want to care. I don't know if for some reason we had this idea that we could have like this transition phase where the Rocky Glance client could deal with V1s.
Yeah, it's a good thing to consider.
I think last release we did get rid of all of the V1 Glance usage.
Okay.
Pretty sure.
Well, in the API, I don't think the Glance client has it out yet.
Yeah.
But maybe I just sort of wasn't paying attention.
I remember there were some patches to
Okay.
make sure we were using V2 and not V1.
Okay. So we set up this little job that runs Glance client against Queens. So we could do that for Cinder too, where you just test against the version that's still got
Oh, to have it still in
so
the
that you
client, but not
yeah,
have it in the current,
exactly.
and be able to still test it.
Yeah. So
That's a good idea.
that seemed to be okay.
Yeah. Yvonne, any other concerns that you can remember with the V2 stuff? There was the Nova usage, there was the Glance Store usage. Anything else you remember running into when you were trying to get off of V1?
Not in storyboard, only in storyboard dev, because we haven't migrated yet. Yvonne?
Muted.
Yes, Jay?
Sean was asking you a question.
So we had mentioned concerns that we have to pay attention to Nova, we have to pay attention to Glance Store. Are there any other areas of concern that you remember from trying to get rid of V1?
Oh, maybe Manila, Vitrash.
Oh yeah, Manila.
Take a look on them.
Okay.
Vitrash uses Cinder for sure, but
What is Manila?
I don't remember which version.
Okay.
Maybe we just need to use code search .org, or search for org projects, use Cinder client and notify them we are mailing list.
Yeah. Okay.
Horizon 2, right?
Oh yeah, does Horizon use?
Who knows?
So Nova, Glance, Horizon, Vitrage, Manila. Why?
Does Horizon use the Glance?
I
can't remember.
I thought so, but I could be wrong.
Maybe it does.
Well, I mean, Yvonne, does Horizon use Python Cinder client?
Yes.
Yes, it does.
Okay. I mean, how else would it interact with
He
Cinder?
uses that as a library.
I'm checking which version does it use.
So you have feature equivalence though, right, with V2 and V3?
Yeah, that's the good thing about this versus
That was-
the V1 deprecation is
Yeah.
they should be able to find and replace V2 to V3 and everything should work
Yeah, because
exactly as it did.
if you don't opt into a micro version, they're supposed to be the same.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it should be a lot easier. Yeah, Horizon has Python Cinder client in the constraints file or constraints file.
Oh, Horizon uses V3 by default,
Oh, good.
Oh, awesome.
but could be overridden.
Okay.
Anyway, I will check it.
Cool. Yeah, so I guess that's all I have on the topic. We can probably move ahead then.
Okay.
Already behind schedule.
Okay. We got Gorka, so I'd like to just kind of check in on where we're at with the getting active HA locking updates in place.
Well, from my part, I currently a couple months ago, I passed that work to John Bernard because I'm focusing on other stuff. So I don't really know what's the status right now. I know that he was going to test it with RBD using etcd and the etcd free gateway.
Is this mostly validation at this point?
I think, well, since there have been a lot of code included in Cinder, since the last time I validated the basic functionality, at this point, which part of the validation is not only on the driver side, but also that we need to validate that the core functionality is still valid and everything is working as expected.
Right.
Because back then, when we merged it, I had manually tested all the create, delete, migrate, all the stuff. But right now, I don't know what's the status of all that.
So what code did you actually merge?
The code we merged was around the changes to the scheduler to have the workers on the API scheduler and volume to be able to have different entries for the stuff that the operation that were ongoing, and to be able to do the cleanup from different nodes, not only from the node that it starts, but also to request it manually. Like, yeah, the node is down, it's not coming up, I know it, so I just request the resources to be cleaned up by other nodes. That was the code that was mostly merged.
Okay. But that wasn't yet the code for handling distributed database access, right?
Oh, wait. Okay, yeah, you mean the scheduling thing, or the database was the changes that we made to access the database were on the API side mostly, and that part was the conditional updates, and that was merged earlier, yes.
Oh, okay. So the code that we needed to borrow from The,
Oh, no, that's the scheduler. Yep.
okay, so the code that we needed to borrow from the,
Yeah, still pending. Yep.
I didn't know you'd gotten that in place.
No, I don't have that in place.
Oh, okay, all right.
You're right. Yeah, that's the part we have to get from the placement.
Thank you.
What code is that?
That's the one that is, so when you make an update to the database, it sets a not flag, what does it do? It basically, it's so if they can, it increments a counter, and then they can tell if somebody has touched the database since they last touched it and decide if they need to refresh the status of things based on whether there's a chance that the database has changed since they last accessed it.
So what happens without that right now?
Well, the problem this tries to the reason why we wanted that is because of the mess we have with the schedulers, that we keep updating the status of the available space on memory, but that all changes in a single node. So the other nodes don't have that data that we have just manually updated. So the idea was to use the database directly and to make sure that when we were changing things, we didn't have a problem with the concurrency. The idea was to keep an incremental value and do a conditional update so that you would say, hey, make the changes, but you only make them if what you have, if the data you have in memory is correct. In case you are setting, for example, a fixed value that you have calculated in memory,
Okay.
you have in 3 or whatever.
So nobody's driving that right now?
I was supposed to, so that's on me. Yep. And yeah, nobody's driving it right now.
And just for context and a slight amount of comfort, maybe, I think we're getting pretty close to trying to validate this in our product as a feature.
Nice if someone did.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a heck of a lot of code for no one having really validated it.
Well,
So
I mean, I don't know that it actually was a whole lot of code, really, but there's a lot of design stuff that, you know.
So that, tell me what validate means. So
So we have this targeted as a feature for, I don't remember if it's
14 or
well,
16.
14's done.
So
I
it
don't
must be
remember.
16.
I don't remember which release it's on. But
Okay.
one of them that's soon.
Well, if it's not future, if it's not 14 that's soon, it would probably be 16. But
So we're going to be testing this with etcd and Ceph as the thing that was noted above, I think.
okay. So is the borrowing the code from the placement service still on you, Gorka, or do we need to find somebody else to take that on?
Well, the trick is that I would have to recheck because this is not just about changing a little bit of code. We have to figure out how the scheduler is currently managing internally the data, because and change it to use the database for all the operations. And there are some things that may not be trivial and that we wouldn't want to have loops all over the place, because you start filtering, then you start weighing, and then you do the changes. But by the time you make the changes, the contents may have already changed too much. So somebody, me or whoever, has to see if that's the best approach, because if we are going with a database to do it, we have to figure out how that fits with our scheduler.
Okay.
It may be not too hard, or it may be complicated. I'm not 100% sure. Because I think the original idea was basically you start with some values, you do the whole operation, you go to write, and if the entry you're modifying has been changed, then you start all over again, which may not be the best approach, because you could be in a loop for a while there.
Okay.
Perfect. What's the difference from that process for the process used on the quotas on the quotas?
The process would right now we use memory. So
Yes, I know but for quotas we use database to have control on how much space or any other resource we can use, right? And in my view, it would be something similar. We use database to control a resource that's limited.
Yeah, but the thing is that our code currently, everything works in memory. You do the filtering in memory. So you have some data, you pass the filters, and then you say, okay, this set of backends pass our filters, then you wait, and then finally you make the modification. But what happens when you go to make the modification, that specific entry with the data you started with, now it's different. Now you don't know if the filter would have passed. You have no idea.
Yeah.
Because you know that the data has changed. So you would have to over again.
Well, we always assume that there's a little bit of a window for inaccuracy with that stuff, even now, I think. Does this really make that worse enough to be a big problem?
So 1 minute window.
Well, if we're trying to fix the window and we still allow a window.
Well, I don't know that making the scheduler 100% accurate is really a requirement of this effort. I mean, it sounds nice, but I mean, that was something that's kind of totally orthogonal to this as far as I can tell, unless this makes it way worse. Because the fact that we have inaccuracy in the scheduler is true regardless of the HA thing.
Yeah. And the fact that we also have a different problem, which is that right now the scheduler mostly works because we only schedule one thing at a time. We don't have two concurrent scheduling processes at the same time because they don't access the database, they don't access RPC calls, they don't do anything. So the green thread is constantly running. You start the process and you complete the process with a single one. So we can never have concurrency problems between the different schedulings requested on a single node. If we start doing database accesses and things like that, we could start introducing context switches between the threads, and then I don't know if we would find additional issues. I know that a long time ago I had a look at the scheduler, and I really thought that everything was broken because from a concurrency point of view, if we were using real threads, things would break. But then I realized that we were using green threads and there was no context switch, so we were safe. But I don't remember the places where I saw these issues. So
Well, it sounds like we need to study this and figure out, what the impact is and kind of figure out what baseline we need to set for claiming that this works or not. Because that's not too obvious to me right now.
Maybe it's simple, and all we need to do is just I would have to analyze, but maybe we just need to, at the last step, when we would normally just change the contents of memory, we just need to send a database change using the current value of the field. So saying available free space equals free space minus the amount used, and that way we could run into having decreased too much, but at least we would be safe otherwise.
Yeah.
And maybe that's what we need. I'm not sure, because then the other services, well, they would have to check the contents before starting on every single request.
Yeah, so that would be something again similar to what the quota does. And whenever you receive a new request, you have to check the database. You don't rely in anything coming from your memory. So that would be the big change. Instead of relying on your memory, all operations, all updates would be done direct to the database, and all the reads would be done direct to the database.
Yeah, so you basically would get the data when you start the scheduling process, and when you complete, you would write. And yeah. And that would at least decrease like Eric was saying, the window would be smaller.
Yeah, and you can even use the conditional updates like you did in the API implementation to fix the race conditions.
Well, I'm not sure we want to fix the race conditions here, which is the point, because to fix the race conditions would mean that you would try to reschedule the same volume again.
You don't need to reschedule, just fail. Because in the end, you try to create a resource and you didn't have any resource for that.
No, because you would have it. It's just that the one you're trying to modify has been modified since the last time, since you started the process. Sorry. Yep.
You're talking about the scheduler, and the scheduler will have the information about all the hosts. So the scheduler will just gather the information from the database from all the hosts, and it will try to create the volume in one of those hosts. And if that fails, it will try in the other host, and when we try, it will not leave that scheduler. It will just do another update try in another host. And when you reach
you're oversimplifying, because the fact that the entry has been modified does not mean that on the next run it will also be selected. You just know that it has been changed. You don't know if the filters will still pass or not with the new data. So you have to start from scratch, get everything from the database, do the filtering, go, and if it has changed again, you don't know if they will pass, you go and start again. There is no other way to fix the race condition.
You mean to start from other filters, because we can might have multiple filters, right?
Yep, that's the problem. That we have to assume that in some cases we will create at least one volume going over the required size or something like that.
Well, and those are the same kind of constraints that Nova settled on when they reworked all their quota stuff.
Yeah,
because it turns out to be a lot better for performance to just be slightly off than to try to be 100% accurate.
Yep.
And in general, I think that's fine.
That's what we could try. Yeah.
Because that's the same exact place the Nova guys landed.
So let me ask this. So the problem is right now, if we have multiple schedulers running, they are all going to have their own in-memory state, and we're guaranteed that answers are going to be inaccurate if you have multiple schedulers running, right?
Yes.
Yes, but you're also guaranteed that they're inaccurate with one scheduler. The
Okay.
question is, how much worse is it if you have
Okay.
more than one?
But we could potentially change it so that they use the database and don't track access, but then each scheduler is going to at least be close to the right answer. And we run the risk that we may run into race conditions where we may over decrement something, but it's not probably going to be any worse than what we have right now.
Yeah, correct.
So would it be possible to implement this in such a way that using the database is optional for the scheduler? And if you guys are going to be running this through test, see what the results look like.
Well, we're going to test it before that exists,
Oh,
for
okay.
sure. I mean, it sounds like
But
something
yeah,
we're looking into.
It could be a good idea to make it optional. If the changes are small and we just need to change at the start of the process and the end, if we just need to change those two places, it would make sense to make it optional.
Okay. Because I'm okay with going down the safer path where we don't try to be perfect, given that we already know we're not perfect and we don't have tons of complaints about it. But we should improve it for the HA configuration. And if it's possible to do it in a way that's optional, I think that would be ideal.
Well, I think
being
one
optional.
important thing to remember is what Eric said, that we have the same problem right now.
Yeah.
HA
Okay.
doesn't change anything.
Whether it's
So
Same-
why
same problem.
overcomplicate it?
Okay. So just,
well, so that's still my kind of take is, unless somebody looks into this a little bit more and finds out that it's like horrifyingly broken, this all sounds like nice improvements, but not something that's going to prevent HA from working, as far as I can tell. Unless it turns out to be way more problematic than it sounds. But it sounds like you're not going to see much behavior that's that different from the kind of stuff you see already, to me.
Exactly. You're going to see the same problems, the same complaints we receive right now. Like, hey, I told it shouldn't create that many volumes, but they were created too quickly or whatever, and I went over the restrictions I had placed. But
Yeah.
same as now.
And there's some incremental stuff that we can do to help a lot of that stuff in the meantime as well. I mean, Brian and I just debugged a quota race condition we found the other day that we got to go fix now, which is going to be way smaller than this whole thing. There's a bunch of things in that area that needs to be hardened for sure.
so are we saying we don't want to touch this at all then?
Well, we probably should start looking into it.
Okay.
But I have a hard time seeing how this is going to happen in Stein.
Okay.
Because just figuring out how to do it and then actually implementing it, we're probably going to be at the end of the release by the time anybody can do that. Whoever anybody is. I'm not sure who's actually going to do this either. But so what we should do is the first goal is just get like a pretty robust understanding of what all this means and what the implications are.
Which will that happen as a byproduct of you guys testing it?
I don't know. It should somehow, but
I think what'll happen is we'll find out whether it's like catastrophically different from the current situation or not
Right.
during testing.
our product testing is going to tell us if like the thing explodes and catches on fire. To figure out the part that we're talking about is probably between me and Brian and Gorka and somebody needs to go study this and
Okay.
figure it out.
Failure. Storage
from-
backend tips over and catches fire.
From my understanding of the scheduler, this will not change with active-active because the scheduler is already active-active. So for most cases.
Well, I was kind of thinking.
Oh,
that
yeah, no,
myself.
sorry. It could change a little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, because now we have multiple volumes reporting at different cadence. So, yeah, it will be slightly different.
Yeah. Is there anything we should look into tuning to mitigate this before we make any changes as far as update intervals of from the volume service and that kind of thing? Is there any potential to help things just via configuration?
Well, if you have all the nodes times synchronized, I added to the scheduler a mechanism to only keep the latest one. So the reports come timestamp. So you always keep the latest one if you receive them out of order. But one of the issues, I think it was Sean that mentioned like 2 years ago or something like that, was that for some backends, the stats gathering, it's a heavy process. And now you will have 3 nodes gathering the stats, which is problematic because you are putting 3 times the burden.
Well, yeah, that might lean towards some tuning kind of in the opposite direction of what I had in mind. I was wondering more along the lines of, can we just pull the volume drivers more often to make the difference between different scheduling nodes less interesting?
Yeah, some of the stats for fetching the back end information is very slow.
Yeah.
Can be.
Cool.
So I think the answer I hear right now is you guys are going to be doing some testing. You will hopefully learn something from it.
Well, and this is going to be a massive ongoing effort to support this anyway in our product. I mean, we're going to test it for the first release, but it's not like we're going to be done then anyway.
Okay.
Oh, it's your house.
Yeah. Snowplow going by set off the doorbell. So apparently it snowed last night. Quite a bit, in fact. Okay, and maybe then in Denver we'll chat again about this.
Yeah, we probably should. I mean,
Okay.
we'll still be doing stuff with it for sure.
Okay. And then, so this is not an urgent thing. I thought we knew that we were going to be horribly broken further than we currently are, but we
I
don't
think
know.
we're in better shape than it sounds like personally.
Okay.
It's just that, I mean, the building blocks are all there where there's at least potential that this is going to work pretty well. It's just
Okay.
that not too many people have actually like built it out yet. But that's about to start happening, so
Okay.
we will learn a lot soon, probably.
Okay, so I'm going to worry about this a little less. I'm going to let you guys who are more experts in doing this kind of thing test it, and
Yeah.
we'll go from there.
Well, this is a hugely important feature set in our product, so we're not going to get out of making sure that it works well one way or another.
Okay.
I mean, that's just another one of those things that every project update at the summit is, we're still working on this, but well, that's good if you guys are actually testing.
It's the new multi-attach.
Yeah.
Well, and see, that's the thing was I didn't know, is our customers going and doing this and they don't, and we don't know how it's working, but it makes me feel better to know that you guys are planning to test
Well, this
it.
is going to all be orchestrated by like O director deployment stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, we're going to know if all the basic parts work or not. Because we're going to ship this as like you can deploy HA thing that we support.
I mean, you guys already deploy 3 control nodes.
Yeah, but Cinder volume runs in active passive.
Yeah,
Pacemaker
pacemaker.
and stuff.
Okay.
This gets us out of the pacemaker world for
Alright.
Cinder.
That's my big concern is the customers that are running pacemaker active, thinking that that's safe.
Yeah, there were customers that were doing that in like Juneau and said it worked great.
Yeah.
And I don't think they were correct, but that's what they said. I don't know. HA is easy if you just ignore all the race conditions.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, anything more on that then? I think we have a plan. You guys are going to be testing it, taking a look at what comes out of it. I'll schedule to discuss this further at the Denver PTG, and we'll kind of do a state of the state discussion at that point.
All the edge people will be walking around asking about this at Denver.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's one of the big targets for us. That's why we're doing it right now. So, I'm sure someone will ask you if you don't talk about it in Denver. Yeah, Facebook messages.
Rachel's not going to be happy. Hey, want to come to Rochester on Saturday?
All right.
I'll tell you later. Okay, shall we move on to the next topic?
Woo, the gate.
Woo, Kate.
Brian's a fan.
Oh, man. That one stupid patch, I think it was like a one-line code change. And it went through like 32 times, I think. And it was, every break was different.
It was impressive. He hit like every failure that he could possibly hit in our game.
Yeah.
But not more than once. So it was like very unsystematic.
Seems like it's gotten better lately.
So there's
It's
a few.
so random.
So there's a
Yeah.
few things with
It
this.
depends on the day.
Do
So
the events notification thing, right?
well, so we got to fix that still. The unit
Yeah.
test one. I think I know how to fix that. I think Rajat was doing that right, and I rejected his fix for it and said do something different.
There was,
But I think we know how to fix that.
okay,
I think.
because there was another fix for that didn't touch the code where I saw it happen.
Yeah, there's been a few.
So I'm wondering
We've been chasing
we
this
just
for a
need to-
while, but
Yeah.
well, Rajat figured out that it was a particular set of tests that were generating these notifications.
Okay.
And his approach was he wanted to put locking around them
Oh,
to make
right.
them only run one at a time or something.
Right.
But all we really have to do in there, I think, is just mock out the notifier so that we don't send. So the whole
Actually,
problem, just to back up a little bit on that, the way that notifications work in our unit test is we make this fake notifier queue that any code generates notifications
Okay.
that would normally go to like AMQP, but they land in this unit test notification bucket.
Okay.
And there's something wrong in the design of that nobody has ever stared at long enough to figure out, where it ends up being shared between multiple tests or something.
Right.
But the easy way I think to fix that is to just don't ever send the notifications. Just mock out the send
Yeah.
notify. And we've done that in some tests, which is why we
And
see this less than we used to.
And it being a unit test, we shouldn't be calling out
Right.
to all these other things.
Yeah.
And so for that one, I think all we have to do is go through the list of 12 tests or whatever that he identified as
Okay.
the source
Just make
and just mock out the notifier and all and just make
Yeah.
sure they're not sending stuff. And we probably needed to throw away this test notifier thing that we have because it clearly does not work the way we thought it was going to work. And we've been poking at it for years trying to get it to work right. But I still don't fundamentally understand the root issue with it, but it's something about how there's this data structure that I think ends up shared across multiple threads that like no one thought was going to be shared.
Yeah, because the one fix that I saw for it was to move the notifier to the setup function. so that it would be unique to each test.
I mean, that might work as
And
well.
get turned down.
But
Yeah.
exactly. But it wasn't, that patch wasn't put in all the stuff that uses the notifier. But
Right.
Oh, so it fixed one area, but
I
there's
think
still
so.
other
I think
areas.
that's what, yeah, because if you dig up the, because I think I found in Bugzilla like the exact error, but it was in a different part of the code. And then I went back to the commit. It had changed one part, but not the other.
Yeah.
But it probably would be even better to just swallow the notifications if you don't need them.
Well, yeah, because the whole premise that you need to send them and then read them is not true when you can mock out.
Yeah.
Both
Send,
sides of it.
you can just mock out where you send it and look for what you want to look
Yeah,
for.
just make sure.
You don't have to send them and collect them, and it's
Right.
way more complicated than it
Yeah.
needs to be. So I think we know how to fix that, but I don't think that's really the most interesting thing going on in the game at this point. As far as
It was a pretty common failure for a
yeah.
lot of few of those, but yeah.
I mean, I've been paying more attention to the Tempest kind of failures lately, but well, other than that one, are there still any unit test issues? I can't think of any off the top of my head.
We were getting hit by a neutron bug that they fixed.
But one thing too that this reminds me of is we really seem to not be using elastic recheck effectively. I mean, this unit test one is an easy one to write an elastic recheck query for, and like nobody's ever done it. It's been there for like 3 years.
I thought Matt Reedman did. and
He's
then-
written a bunch lately. I don't know. Or maybe,
I think you did, and it's probably when the bug got fixed, it got, I guess they had to merge those.
But I think he actually found that elastic recheck wasn't actually working anymore.
Oh.
So that might have
I
been
used
part of it.
to use it a bit, but I haven't used it lately. I mean, you can go to the status page, and there's queries on there that seem to be doing something. So I assume it's working for some projects at least. So do we have a gut feeling across gate failures in general? Like, how many of them are Cinder related versus other projects hitting us in Tempest?
Actually, I was checking out an error gate failure, and it was related to OsloDB. So, should we handle, or can we handle that case in Cinder?
It was what? Oslo DB.
Oh,
That seems surprising.
Do you remember what the issue was with that?
I can share the link on IRC.
Okay.
I don't think I've seen that one. Oh, the subunit parser one showed up again on somewhere, right? Yeah, we were talking about that the other day. That's why that was in my head.
oh man, it's killing us in Glance.
Well, so the way we got around that in Cinder was we figured out that it was triggered by having more than some number of kilobytes of log output.
So Abhishek put a patch, and so I asked him to also do another one that didn't have a fix,
Yeah.
and they found almost exactly the same amount.
Huh.
So it looked real promising at first, and then the other one caught up. So
There's something with S-Tester.
yeah,
Was the root of the issue here, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Just, we debugged a bunch of different things in there, and we were never able to track down what exactly was causing it. But it is only Python 3. It doesn't happen on Python 2.
Yeah.
So there's something with string handling,
Must be
Unicode.
Unicode.
Yeah.
So I was looking at the elastic recheck page, and I remember Matt was talking about the volume delete two's connection error thing. And it looks like he put up a patch yesterday
Oh,
that
RAM disk.
tries to run etcd on a RAM disk, which sounds insane, but I don't know why that's a requirement, but maybe that will help.
And that kind of seems like a workaround. I still think that the twos library should handle intermittent connection failures, or at least have some retries or something in there.
Yeah, I don't know.
But it's
Really,
hitting,
what's going on there?
that's hitting us. But that's all external factors.
Right.
We kind of got to assume that
Well,
etcd is
and-
going to be there.
And that's the problem, is I don't know that other than the unit test one about the notification stuff, I'm not sure how many of them are like obvious things that we need to go do something with. Because I don't actually know how many we're seeing repeatedly anyway. My impression is that the failures are kind of all over the place right now, but I haven't looked at a lot of them lately.
Test walk versions.
Oh yeah, that's a known one too.
Yeah.
The walk versions failure. What does it fail with?
Tuple index out of
In the code, we are calling the migrate up method of the OstoDB, and there the error is appearing.
Yeah, tuple index.
That looks familiar.
That's a known one somebody was tracking, I think.
Yeah, that looks
I thought
really
I saw
familiar.
a fix for that, but apparently not.
Yeah, I thought it was something that had been fixed.
I wonder if occasionally we're getting a slow library.
Oh, maybe. Oh, is that a stable branch patch? No, that's not master.
So the title of this was asking about a process for addressing this stuff.
Oh.
Is there is there
Yeah.
really anything other than like we need to get some of us to go stare at it? Like I don't really know what we should be doing that would actually help.
I think it would help if we were better at putting in elastic recheck.
Yeah, elastic
Yeah.
recheck and filing bugs would probably help
So,
because it would at least help us track
Yeah.
trending interesting ones
yeah,
versus really rare ones. I used to do some of the elastic recheck, but it's been a while. And every time I do it now, I spend 20 minutes in Logstash trying to figure out how to format the query and all that stuff.
Yeah, and I've been to Riedeman's sessions on how you do this, and I'm insufficiently technical apparently.
I mean, I basically know how to do it if we want to walk through how to actually do one of those. If we have one, I guess the unit test one. Or he already did one for that, didn't he? Should we try to like
Yeah, maybe we should
figure out how to do one? It might be useful. I don't know.
yeah, that might be. I think we didn't have time.
Which we need to pick one, I guess.
And I think some of it is a bandwidth issue. I'm trying to keep reviews going forward.
Well, and that's the thing too, is anytime you want to actually figure one of these out, it's a fairly large time investment.
Yeah.
And people aren't usually motivated to really do it unless it gets really bad.
So you've got people on your team who are test people.
Maybe, yeah. Real people.
Real people who maybe could help with some of these.
Maybe.
I mean, like, so let me do a pie in the sky sort of thing, so I can at least, when Reedman comes and tries to kick me in the nuts and say, why do you guys not deal with this? What if we put a work list together? I'm thinking in the theory that storyboard ever actually works.
So we're gonna do this in like you. I didn't say that. Yet.
Wow.
He's becoming more and more a single person.
So I wonder whether, so we are being recorded. So I'm thinking maybe if we do the last, I've always held off on filing the elastic check things because I think maybe it's not sufficiently general. But on the other hand, if we file the elastic check
I
things,
think the thing is you
then we
don't
get more data.
I think the thing is you don't know if it's
Yeah,
interesting
we just
until
don't
you
know.
do it and then gather stats on it.
So if we step through it real quick, then, because once we know how to do the elastic check thing,
Yeah.
then it's a matter of just gathering data. So when Matt bugs you, you can just say, we're gathering data on these bugs. So
Okay.
to prioritize which ones to fix. And then we could actually do that at some point. But I
Okay.
think part of it's, I've always held off because I don't want to consume resources. And sometimes you do recheck and it works again. But my experience lately has been sometimes you do recheck 16 times and then it works. So I think, investing a little time in doing that plastic recheck might be good.
So I'm seeing if I can do one real quick. I don't know how to.
But I would like to put, for our purposes, on our Cinder dashboard, a work list of, okay, here are the gate failures that we're seeing, so that, then maybe I would be more motivated to, I saw this problem, I should open a bug for it. Though with my luck, they'll all get duped against something else, but.
So how are we going to do this?
Can you connect to the Hangout and share your screen?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Where's the address for it?
It's in, scroll up in the, well, it's either in IRC or in the Etherpad.
Yeah, I don't have a fancy IRC bouncer for Freeload.
What? Keep going.
There it is. See if I can. I'm not allowed to join this call. Oh, Hangouts video calls in Firefox are currently experimental. What? Piece of shit. Google kills me. It works in here.
Okay, so I'll stop sharing so you can share.
Yeah, I have to figure out if I actually know what the hell I'm doing, but yeah. So, oh well, let me find my failure and everything here.
Did you start sharing?
No, I was going to make sure I closed all my entertaining browser windows
Oh.
first. Where's the share button?
There.
So, I did get it to work, I guess. Okay, so I picked this error that somebody was just looking at here on 602.181. This is readable. Yeah. So, I don't know that this is the best candidate because this is this may be a really generic kind of message. But generally, what you want to do is find a string that's uniquely interesting for this particular error,
Okay.
which for this one we'll probably pretend is this tuple index out of range, which appears to be some kind of internal SQL alchemy error after some other thing happened, which is weird. But so the way that I usually do this, first step is change the search period to something more than 15 minutes or you will never find anything. And get, so if you look at any, so the way this thing works is it basically pulls up all the messages out of every job and a bunch of fields about the job name and where it ran and patch set and status and all this stuff. So the trick is knowing what to query for. So usually I'll do build status as failure and not job name. Build name is the name of the job, which is OpenStack Tox Pi27. And then the message is the the interesting thing you want to look for, which I think there's maybe some tricks around escaping that I'm not totally aware of, because this doesn't work. Oh, it does work. Okay. A minute ago it didn't work, and then I took out the angle brackets. But I think this is sufficient to find what you usually want to look for. So if you look at one of these, you'll see the change ID. So one of these is probably the one that we were looking at. But you can see the change ID, the job, there's the message, and you can go, read the whole output if you want to. But the main point is that there's 4 of these in the last 30 days.
Looks like we're all on the same day.
Yeah, they were all like within a minute of each other. That's
That's
within a
weird.
couple minutes of each other. That's very weird.
So that might be a sign that it was some kind of gate issue.
Actually, all these are just this was all in the same patch set.
Oh.
So maybe we got 4 occurrences of the same. Maybe the same message just showed up a bunch of times. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So the same thing just happened a bunch of times in the same run. And apparently, this is the only patch set that one happened on in the last 30 days.
So that would
query.
Probably not a candidate
Well,
for
so-
Probably
elastic
not
well,
elastic recheck.
Except unless it was on different build names. So if you take out the build name and tell this thing to go search everything. Yeah, still not seeing much.
So
But if
this
it,
would not be a candidate for.
well, probably not a very interesting one. But if we pretend it was, what you really generally do, I'm not going to actually do this one right now, but there's an elastic recheck, OpenStack Git repository, and it's full of YAML files for all these things. So
Is that like the bug number?
these correlate to this page, which was one of these a cinder thing. So if we look at like 181.0526, it's just this like in a YAML query. So it's a bug number YAML. You put query, and you're supposed to know some YAML, parentheses and stuff, I guess.
So that's a good resource too, is if you're trying to figure out the logstash query, you can look at all these YAML files and see other examples of it.
Yeah. And I think these get removed after the bug has been fixed and not of interest anymore. But these are all the queries that generate this page. So if you know what to look for, it's not that hard to find. Oh, and the part I skipped there, I guess, is for the ones that are like Tempest failures, there's a field tags, which is the file name in the log. So this one's in like job output.txt and console.html. And so if you're going to query for something like that, they query just the cvol and capi logs so that it doesn't have to text search everything, just to probably reduce load significantly. I think that is most of my knowledge on this, but I think it's enough to actually do everything we want to do.
So you figure out the logstash query, you file a bug, right? You gotta have a bug to
Yeah, so you need a bug to make a recheck query because those are all tied to bugs.
and then you submit a patch to elastic recheck with the YAML file.
Yeah, so I did one of these. I thought I did one of these. Maybe I didn't do one of these.
Just a good show to see the last one.
Yeah, so I mean, it's just a regular Git review thing.
You can see that Jay with this.
What?
He was just
Oh,
he was using
something,
your
and you
machine
switched over to the
Oh, I'm
Ethernet.
No, so it's just, I mean, it's just a regular, you add a YAML file and write it up and do a Git review. So I think that's pretty much all you need to know to do it. And I'm sure this is documented in some form somewhere. But,
Yeah.
it's probably full of a lot of details that you're not interested in.
And the other thing that we could do to try to reduce the number of failures is actually pay attention to this elastic recheck page for when there are Cinder bugs there.
Yeah, and so
Do something
you
about
can
it.
find some interesting stuff in here too if you query this enough. Like one of the LVM bugs, I think a few people were looking at recently, they figured out that it showed up on build node Ubuntu Xenial, but it never showed up on Bionic or something. So sometimes you can get info out of that, but I don't think that many of our bugs tend to be, node specific or anything.
Sorry, you noted.
What?
I think you did.
So yeah, I think that's about it.
Can you drop the example that you did in here just for shits and giggles so I have something to remember it from?
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
So the output of that is we should start creating some elastic recheck.
Yeah, especially
Queries.
if you see the same kind of thing more than once.
I'm very good at being like, oh, that failed, recheck.
Yeah.
Which I realize is the wrong thing to do. So hopefully we can get the team to start having better practices around that. Okay, good. And then I would like to, when anyway, we'll come back to that. Anything else on that? No? Okay. Should we take a 15-minute break?
Yeah.
Because I messed up the schedule here and we actually have half an hour free that I didn't realize. And I need to do a little bit of prep for the next subject anyway. So let's reconnoiter in roughly 13 minutes.
I'm good.
Sound good? All right. I'm going to stop screen sharing for the time being, but we're still here. Oh, I'm not screen sharing anymore. Eric was. Okay.
How can only one person do it?
13-minute break. We'll talk to you all in a little bit.
See ya.
Thanks, Squirka. All right.
It looks like the documentation for this is the README, the repo where